Brazil might be the hardest national team in the world to predict, not because they don't produce enough talent, quite the opposite. Brazil is the only football nation where uncertainty almost feels like part of its identity. Every generation produces new superstars, new wonderkids, new magicians. Some become legends, others disappear just as quickly as they arrived. And that's exactly what made the squad so difficult to build. So this is my prediction for Brazil's 2030 World Cup squad in a 4-3-3. Starting with the goalkeepers. For years, Brazil's biggest goalkeeper debate was simple: Alisson or Edison. By 2030, the debate might become, who's actually number one? That's why I went with Vinícius Júnior. An excellent shot stopper, commanding in his box and more than capable of playing at the highest level. Behind him is Santos, a more aggressive modern goalkeeper with great reflexes, although there are still question marks around his consistency under pressure. And completing the group is Pedro Morisco. Technically sound, physically impressive, and another goalkeeper who could easily grow into an international level option. So no, I don't think Brazil have a goalkeeping problem. They just don't have another Alisson or Edison, which, to be fair, almost nobody does. Now the right backs. I went with Wesley. Exactly the kind of fullback Brazil has always loved producing. Fast, aggressive, fearless going forward, and constantly looking to create danger down the right side. Behind him is Vinícius Tobias. A very similar profile, giving Brazil almost the same tactical option off the bench. At centre-back, Gabriel remains the leader. Even at 32, I think he'll still be the defensive reference point of this team. Strong in the air, dominant in duels, and exactly the kind of experienced defender this young backline needs. Next to him is Murillo, probably one of the most complete defenders Brazil has produced in recent years. Fast, composed, excellent on the ball, and capable of starting attacks from deep. On the bench sits Vitor Reis, a player with enormous potential who could eventually develop into Gabriel's long-term successor. Then Beraldo, one of my favorite squad players, not only because of his quality at centre-back, but because he also gives Brazil another option on the left if needed. And then nobody. Seriously, I actually left one squad spot empty. Not because Brazil don't have centre-backs, they do. But because I couldn't find one I genuinely believe belonged here. So if you subscribe now, I'll just assume you're applying for it. I wanted an experienced centre-back who could also cover right-back, similar to what Beraldo offers on the left. I couldn't find the right player. So if you think I missed someone, let me know in the comments. At left-back, I went with Carlos Augusto. Reliable, experienced, and tactically flexible enough to play in several different systems. Behind him is Vinícius Lira, a younger and much more attacking alternative who brings a completely different profile to the squad. Maybe there isn't a Thiago Silva waiting in the next generation, but there also isn't an obvious weak spot. Well, unless one of you actually gets that empty squad spot, then we might have one. Now the midfield, starting with Bruno Guimarães. The conductor. Every great Brazilian team needs someone who can control the rhythm, connect defense with attack, and bring balance to all the creativity ahead of him. That's Bruno. Alongside him is André Santos, a modern box-to-box midfielder who perfectly combines Brazilian technique with the tactical discipline he's developed in Europe. And then comes probably my biggest tactical gamble, Rafinha. I don't think Rafinha will stay a winger forever. In fact, I think we're watching the beginning of the same evolution we saw with Angel Di Maria. Less sprinting, more controlling, less hugging the touchline, more deciding games from the middle. Behind them is Edison, the worker, not the flashiest midfielder, but exactly the kind of player every successful team needs. Then Breno Biden, elegant, intelligent, and probably the closest replacement for Bruno Guimarães. Zé Lucas gives Brazil something completely different. A true ball winner, a midfielder who actually enjoys doing the dirty work. And finally Isaac, probably my biggest gamble in the entire squad. But if Rafinha eventually moves into midfield, Brazil will need another creative player capable of replacing that profile. And this was probably the most frustrating part of building the squad, not because Brazil lacks midfielders, quite the opposite. There were so many players who could have made the bench, good players, reliable players, players in the perfect age for 2030. But very few made me think he absolutely has to be here. The depth is there, the world-class quality isn't. Now the attack. And somehow, this was both easy and hard. The hard part was picking the players. The easy part? That's on you. Just scroll down, leave a like, write a nice comment and scroll back up again. Because this is where Brazil stop looking like everybody else and start looking like Brazil again. No country produces attacking talent quite like this. If I wanted, I could probably build a second squad full of exciting forwards that would still be competitive. The difficult part wasn't finding talent. The difficult part was predicting who will still be world-class in 2030. That's the strange thing about Brazilian attackers. They rarely decline slowly. 1 year they look like the best winger on the planet. 2 years later, everybody is talking about somebody else. That's happened for decades, and that's exactly why predicting Brazil is so difficult. But let's try it. Estevão starts on the right. And by 23, he could genuinely be one of the biggest stars in world football. Behind him is Savinho, another incredibly direct winger who constantly attacks defenders. On the left, Vinícius Júnior. Hopefully, by 2030, he'll spend slightly less time arguing with absolutely everyone and slightly more time playing football, because if he does, he'll still be the player this entire team revolves around, explosive, unstoppable in one-on-one situations, and capable of deciding games on his own. And if Vinícius finally finds that balance, Brazil suddenly become a completely different team. Behind him is Gabriel Martinelli. Different profile, same intensity, same willingness to attack defenders every single time he gets the ball. And after all those artists, Brazil still needs somebody to actually finish the painting. That's where Endrick comes in. A proper number 9, powerful, aggressive, clinical, exactly the striker this generation of Brazilian creators needs in front of them. João Pedro, a versatile forward who gives Brazil another tactical option whenever the game demands something different. And then Igor Thiago, a completely different option. Sometimes, surrounded by artists, you simply need someone willing to do the physical work inside the box. And that's exactly why I said at the beginning that Brazil are the hardest national team in the world to predict. Not because they don't produce enough talent, because they produce too much. Somewhere in Brazil right now, there's probably a 15-year-old winger we've never heard of who'll make half of this prediction look ridiculous by 2030. And that's exactly why predicting Brazil feels impossible, which strangely enough is exactly what makes it so much fun. Anything can happen. Brazil could beat absolutely anyone. They could also lose to almost anyone. That's why my prediction is a quarterfinal. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But what do you think? Who did I leave out? And which Brazilian wonderkid do you think we'll all be talking about in 2030?